Although the villains on this list acted like they had their wits about them for the most part, they seemed to drop a good 50 IQ points in one key scene, which ended up getting themselves killed. So I am Gareth, this is What Culture Horror, and here are 10 more dumb decisions in horror movies that got the villain killed. Number 10, Paul Cerrone wants the snake alive, Anaconda. In this unintentionally hilarious creature feature, a film crew are taken hostage by deranged snake hunter Paul Cerrone, played by a delightfully OTT Jon Voight. Cerrone intends to use the crew to help him capture the world's biggest anaconda, measuring an unprecedented 40 feet in length. In the climax, Cerrone ties up 2 crew members and bathes them in animal blood to lure the massive predator out. Sadly, things don't really work out, since Cerrone finds himself being swallowed whole by the monstrous creature before being barfed out while already half ingested. What makes this death more ridiculous is how avoidable it really was. While the anaconda was laser focused on constricting her prey, Cerrone had the perfect kill shot. However, the Paraguayan huntsman was so set on capturing the gigantic cryptid alive, he intended to merely sedate it. But why? Discovering the biggest snake in existence would have garnered him fame and fortune, regardless of whether it was alive or not. Even though he would have received more recognition if he brought the specimen in alive, why risk it? Throughout the movie, Cerrone had serious trouble dealing with a 25-foot-long anaconda. Did he really think he was equipped to take down a reptile nearly twice that size? Sadly, Cerrone only learned the error of his ways once he found himself quite literally inside the belly of the beast. Now I want to know, what is your favorite animal horror flick? Is it Anaconda, Jaws, or something else? You let me know in the comments section down below. Number 9, Dollahide can't control his temper, Red Dragon. In this Silence of the Lambs prequel, Agent Will Graham is forced to work with imprisoned cannibal Hannibal Lecter to track down serial killer Francis Dollahide. In his research, Will learns Dollahide was traumatized by his grandmother, who regularly mocked his cleft lip and threatened to cut off his genitalia. As Dollahide was tortured, the grandmother kept uttering the words, "You disgusting beast, do you want me to cut it off?" When Will finds Dollahide has invaded his home and has his son held at knife point, it looks like the maniac is holding all the cards. Hoping to rattle the self-proclaimed Red Dragon, Will chastises his son, uttering the exact words Dollahide's grandmother used to torment him. Unable to control his rage, Dollahide flings the boy aside and attacks Will, giving him the chance to kill him. Since Dollahide had the knife right beside the child's eye, he had the opportunity to shockingly slay him there and then, even after Will started playing mind games with him. Dollahide could have slaughtered Will immediately after stabbing his son, but the trauma of his childhood meant he was ultimately easy to manipulate. Number 8, Jill reveals too much, Scream 4. Seeing how Sydney became famous for surviving the Woodsboro murders, Jill Roberts became insanely jealous, inspiring her and her friend Charlie Walker to become the new Ghostfaces. Jill intended to frame her ex as Ghostface and paste herself as the killer's sole survivor, hoping it would turn her into an icon. For the most part, Jill's scheme is pretty airtight too. She even convinces Charlie to stab her for real in the shoulder. While resting in the hospital, Jill casually mentions to Dohy how she and Gale have matching wounds. When Dohy mentions this detail to Gale though, they surmise Jill is the killer, since there's no other way she could know where Gale was stabbed. What's interesting about this slip-up is the fact nobody compelled Jill to mention her shoulder or Gale. If she kept her yap shut, she would have gotten away scot-free. Number 7, Adam uses the dumbest weapon possible against a ghost, Unfriended. In Unfriended, a bunch of teens are chatting on Skype. Remember that? When they discover there's an unknown caller among them. Over time, they discover this uninvited guest is the ghost of Laura, a classmate who took her own life. Believing each member of the chat deserves to die, Laura vows to murder them all unless they come clean about the sins they committed. When several of the chat room friends dismiss Laura's threats, she compels them to kill themselves. Even after witnessing the death of his friends, Adam refuses to take Laura seriously though. Considering he raped a girl and forced her to get an abortion, this dirtbag has more reason than almost anyone to suffer Laura's wrath. Nevertheless, Adam thinks he's got everything covered since he has a secret weapon, a gun. If Laura shows herself, Adam believes he can just blast her away, despite the fact she's already dead. What makes Adam's plan dumber is the fact he knows Laura can take control of anyone she wishes. To the surprise of absolutely nobody, Laura possesses Adam shortly after, forcing him to blow his brains out. Seriously, how did he think his master plan was gonna pan out? Number 6, Steve thinks Noah trusts him. Fresh. In Fresh, Noah believes her love life is looking up after a chance encounter with a handsome stranger called Steve. Little does she know his appetite is not the same as hers. After luring her to an isolated cabin, Steve knocks Noah out before locking her in a dungeon. When she comes to, Steve reveals he's a cannibal and intends Noah to be his latest meal. When Noah tries to escape, Steve recaptures her and cleaves the flesh off her buttocks as punishment. Refusing to give up, Noah pretends to be fascinated by cannibalism and asks Steve if she can eat human flesh as well. Even though Steve makes it clear he still intends to devour her, he's utterly fooled by this ruse. When Noah encourages him to have sex with her, he gets naked without a care in the world, giving her the opportunity to rip his you-know-what off. And after Noah rescues another prisoner, the pair go on to batter Steve to death. Now, Steve was obviously under the impression Noah was suffering from Stockholm Syndrome, which is why he let his guard down. But considering he literally chopped her butt off, and was gonna turn her into a main course, did he honestly think she was into him? Steve may be out of his mind, but he never came across as stupid until this very moment. Cheers for watching this video today, and hit that subscribe button down below for more horrific what culture stuff in your life. Number 5, Vickers could have easily avoided her death. Prometheus. In Ridley Scott's Alien prequel Prometheus, a space crew is tasked with investigating a distant moon, believing it harbors secrets about mankind's origins. Though the mission is seemingly led by Meredith Vickers, she's actually following the orders of her ailing father, Peter Wayland, who's hoping to find a cure for death. Despite Peter's fervency, Vickers has little faith in the mission, nor does she care for anyone but herself. And when her father is killed by an extraterrestrial called the Engineer, she immediately abandons her crew members. Fair enough. Even though Vickers proves to be adaptable and resourceful though, she is undone by her own idiocy. After the Engineer's crescent-shaped ship is blown out of the sky, Vickers runs for dear life. Since the craft is rolling towards her, she can just easily avoid being crushed by dashing to the side. Instead, Vickers keeps running in front of the ship, causing her to be flattened like a pancake. Number 4, Freddy doesn't kill Neil. Nightmare on Elm Street 3: The Dream Warriors. In this iconic threequel, Freddy Krueger continues to torment the residents of Elm Street in their dreams, causing many of them to be institutionalized. Although the facilitator Dr. Neil Gordon initially believes the patient's ramblings about Freddy are a group delusion, he soon discovers the dream demon is very real. Over time, he discovers the fedora-sporting maniac can only be beaten by laying his human body to rest. Neil and Officer Thompson dig up his remains, ready to perform the last rites. Sensing someone has defiled his grave, however, Freddy possesses his skeleton and uses it to slay Officer Thompson. After battering Neil senseless with a shovel and rendering him unconscious, there is absolutely nothing stopping Freddy from finishing him off. Instead, he screams triumphantly before returning to the dream world. After Neil awakens, he uses holy water to consecrate Freddy's body, allowing his soul to pass on, at least until the sequel. Since Freddy is renowned for tying up loose ends, it's pretty out of character for him to spare Neil here, especially after digging up his body. Freddy's foolish oversight cost him dearly. What a silly demon. Number 3, Chucky gives up. Seed of Chucky. In the opening of Child's Play, a voodoo killer called Chucky is left mortally wounded, forcing him to transfer his soul to a doll. Ever since, Chucky has been obsessed with returning to his human form, slaughtering anyone who interferes with his plans. After 5 films and 16 years, it looks like the tyrannical toy would finally get his wish. In Seed of Chucky, the titular villain and his bride Tiffany tie up their victims and prepare the ritual to take over their bodies. But at the last minute, Chucky has an identity crisis, saying a mortal life would be terrible since you get sick, you get old, you can't get it up anymore. In that moment, Chucky accepts his doll body for the first time, abandoning his crusade to become human after over a decade. Even though Chucky has a point, it's not like his current life is much better though, right? In his plastic form, Chucky has been incinerated, dismembered, decapitated, blown up, cut in half, and had his face ripped off. Is that the lifestyle he wants to embrace? The fact that Chucky is murdered and chopped up into itty-bitty pieces shortly after further proves how unwise his decision really was. Number 2, Balkan burns himself to prove he's immortal. The Ninth Gate. The ninth gate centers around book dealer Dean Corso, who's tasked by occult scholar Boris Balkan to verify the authenticity of a demonic tome. When Dean notices people connected to him have a nasty habit of winding up dead, he realizes his life and soul are in serious danger. During the climax, Balkan reveals to Dean that he intends to use the book's passages to endow himself with demonic power. And while Dean is subdued, Balkan performs a satanic ritual that should render him immune to pain or injury. To showcase his newfound power, he plunges his hands in flame, revealing that he feels nothing. When Dean taunts his employer to give us another, Balkan showers himself in gasoline, allowing the fire to then cover his entire body. As is revealed later though, one of the ritual's engravings was actually forged, causing Balkan's spell to only work temporarily. Balkan realizes this way too late, causing him to be incinerated by the fire, compelling Dean to put him out of his misery. Obviously, Balkan could have avoided such an agonizing death if he just attempted to showcase his so-called invulnerability in a less dramatic manner. The show-off. Number 1. Pennywise doesn't finish off his victims. It and It Chapter 2. In the 2017 adaptation, a teenager called Billy discovers his hometown has been invaded by a shape-shifting clown who feeds on fear. When Pennywise eats Billy's little brother, Georgie, he and his friends vow to destroy the demonic jester. Pennywise has plenty of chances to kill the children, but chooses not to, knowing they will taste better when their fear has peaked. Pennywise's hesitance gives Billy and his mates enough time to band together and pulverize the devilish Joker, forcing him to go into hiding for years to heal. In his defense, Pennywise assumed a bunch of kids who call themselves the Losers Club would just be easy pickings. After his initial defeat though, he should probably wise up for their next encounter, right? Despite having decades to plan out a more efficient strategy, Pennywise attacks his prey the same way as before, refusing to finish the job even when they're offered to him on a silver platter. Pennywise's ineffective method allows the Loser Club to get the drop on him again, killing him for good this time. The silly clown.